Good morning, YouTube, and welcome back to the channel. Today what we'll be doing is tuning up this Specialized Camber that you see behind me. Ah, it's a beautiful morning in New Orleans. The flamingos are standing, the water droplets are sitting on the cars, the flowers are blooming, and the sun is rising. But most importantly, a friend is dropping off his bike for repair. What's up, dude?
I'm tired.
I feel that. There she is. This is a 2018 Specialized Camber. It's a 27.5 trail bike with 120mm travel front and rear and a 1x10 SRAM GX drivetrain. It also has Tektro Gemini hydraulic brakes. The reason this bicycle is visiting me today is for a full tune-up and cleaning. That way we can make sure it's running just as it did when it was new. If you're not so sure what that entails, stay tuned, because, well, that's the purpose of this video. Alright gang, so we have everything in place here. Over here on my table you can see my fully loaded Park Tool EK2 with a lot of extras that I've just collected over time, as well as all of the chemicals of choice, my torque bars, and of course, the bike itself. So the first thing we're gonna do is just do a brief run through and make sure all of the functions are proper, like brake function, shifting function, dropper function, and suspension and things like that. The brakes, check. The dropper post, check. And as far as the shifting is concerned, it's almost perfect. So for now, we'll give that a check. Now something's definitely up with this rear suspension, but we'll get into that later. So my next plan of action here is going to be to drop the wheels, pull the chain. We're going to get that into the ultrasonic cleanser, and I'm going to just start doing a general wipe down of the bike because you can see it's been taking on some dirt for a while and we just want to get rid of all that so we can be working on a fresh, clean slate. Okay, so if you've been following me for a while, you may have seen this machine on my Instagram before. This is the ultrasonic cleanser. It's like an electric bathtub for dirty parts. I use this to clean chains. So in here is just a mixture of water and soap. I use enough soap just to, tint the water whatever color the soap is, and that's normally perfect. I always put the heating element on and I run the chain for 2 cycles, but I make sure to scrub the chain between cycles 1 and 2. So let's get that knocked out. As far as chain wear goes, he actually has a 10 speed. I just counted the cogs. I thought it was the 1x11, but it's a 1x10. So that means that it falls subject to the 0.75 measurement. And in this case, he's still good. The chain has some life left. I was not able to push this end through the link. So chain's still good for now, but soon it may be time to think about an upgrade or a replacement. When you hear the buzz, you know that she's cleaning it up. While that's running, this is a good time to spray detail the entire bike, and I use Meguiar's Last Touch spray. So I just completed a basic wipe down with the spray detailer just to get all the mud off. You can already see the frame looks way better. We will polish it later to get even more of a shine and just get any remaining dirt out. But yeah, so that's done for now. We're gonna go over to the ultrasonic cleanser because the chain just finished its 2nd cycle. And you can see the water got darker, but this is not the dirtiest chain I've ever seen. This one's actually fairly clean. But once I wipe it down and get it re-lubed, it's gonna be way, way better. So we're gonna knock that out real quick. You can see all the dirt resting at the bottom of the ultrasonic cleanser. And then when I pass it through a towel to dry it off, I got a lot more gunk out, and the chain is so clean now you can eat off of it if you wanted to. So what I do is, I'm gonna let the chain dry for a bit while we move on to the alcohol stage. So same thing as the microfiber towel method, except this time we use alcohol, and I'll be cleaning the teeth of the jockey wheels, the teeth of the chain wheel, the teeth of the cassette. I do not like to use degreasers like a lot of people do because I don't want to risk that getting into the hub bearing, because once that happens, it's toast. And then also on the alcohol stage, I clean the rotor surfaces and the wheels, just because a lot of contaminants can pile up on that over time. Make sure you use a new towel for the alcohol stage. You don't want to have any contaminants getting on those brake rotors. I do want to mention that these little cassette brushes are great for when you have trapped leaves and other things inside of your cassette. It's good to have one of these on hand. Once you've completed the total wipe down of the rims, the cassette, and the brake rotors, it's always a good idea to just double check the tightness of everything. So for example, this thing, the valve stem on both wheels is extremely loose, probably why we're losing a lot of air. It's good to check the tightness of the cassette as well as the spokes, just to make sure that nothing is out of the ordinary. You don't want to taco a wheel. And then of course, rotor torque as well. Want to just make sure all that is dialed in. So I'm going to go through all that now with my tools, and then we'll continue cleaning with the alcohol stage on the drivetrain of the bike. For lubricating the through axles, I like to use this WPL lubricant. Just remember that a little bit goes a long way here, folks. There's no need to go crazy with it. Just a nice coat along the whole thing on all sides will do just fine. So I waited until now to tension the spokes, just because it's easier to do when it's on the bike. Basically, I just go around the entire bike and put about 1/4 of a turn, or maybe even just 1/8 of a turn on all the spokes. You don't want to go crazy and over tighten just one spoke by itself. You can easily throw the bike out of dish. So again, make sure you just do small increments all the way around the wheel. And let me tell you something, this bike really needed it. Right now, my chain lube of choice is MUC-OFF C3 ceramic. Basically, you'll take the cap off and you will put a dab on each roller one by one until you've made it all the way around the chain. Pro tip, start at the master link. It makes it easier to know when you've gone the whole way around the chain. All right, now that you have your chain all lubed up, it's a good idea to run through the gears one more time. Make sure everything is shifting properly, just in case you need to adjust cable tension or something like that. These are the kinds of things that like to destroy my recording process. Why is somebody with a diesel just chilling in the middle of the intersection making a ton of noise? I have no clue. So yeah, guys, that was totally worth doing, adding the extra, excuse me. Guys, that was really worth doing. Let me try this again. So it was totally worth double checking the shifting quality on the bike after putting everything back together, because I did have to add about 3 clicks of tension to the cable to get it to shift properly. So don't forget that step. Okay, so I'm very pleased with how things are coming along here. The next thing I want to do is add some orange seal to the tires, because I'm sure a lot of the sealant is dried up. With our valve core removed, you can put the little injection nozzle on your bottle and squeeze it on in. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is just double check the suspension. I'm going to put my shock pump on both of these ports and just make sure that I'm reading normal numbers, because when I sat on it, it felt like mad plush. But then again, the owner of this bike weighs 150 and I weigh about 200, so it might be normal. But again, I just want to double check. So for example, if you can read this, on the front, it is reading about 90 PSI. And when I compared the air chart down low on the fork leg, it actually said that for his body weight, it should only be about 70. So yeah, I guess it's normal. Just feels really plush to me. Now for the rear, I just checked this air can and it was only reading 90. As a general rule of thumb, when starting off here, you want your rear air can to have about as much PSI as you weigh. So if you weigh 155, this should be about 155. So I threw some air in here because I knew something didn't feel right, and I'll try to get it as close as I can going off of his body weight versus mine. All right, so as we all know, 30% sag is pretty much the preference in the rear. But since I weigh more than he does, I did it at about 40%, and that should be pretty dialed in for him. So the next thing I'll do is use the WPL Fork Boost Lube to draw out contaminants that are trapped in the seals of the rear shock, the fork stanchions, and the dropper post. Now I'm not gonna lie, this stuff's kind of messy. You're gonna have to touch it to get it all the way around each seal. But you just start off by drizzling it on there. You see it looks kind of gooey. And then just work it around with your fingertip. You're gonna have to do that to all of them. And then once that's done, you'll bounce it around and you'll see all of the grime that it removes. So that's what we're looking like. A lot of dirt. And you can see the seals look new again. So again, I'm just gonna repeat those steps for the rear as well as the dropper. All right, so got the brush again. This time, we're gonna work it in these pivots just to loosen up any dirt that might be resting inside of them. And then I'll just blast it with some compressed air, excuse me. And that way we know that there's no junk just chilling in there. Now he bought this bike used, so I'm not saying he did this, but don't use Scotch tape as frame protection. I have to fix that, that's gonna bother me. So for this task, I will be using Miles Wide Industry EVERCLEAR. It is a roller protectant basically, and I'll just cut a few little strips out of this piece, and it's gonna look way better than Scotch tape. There we go. Now I'll be able to sleep tonight. Okay, so the service is really starting to wind down here. The next thing I'm gonna go ahead and do is just check every single bolt, make sure nothing's coming loose. We're gonna start at the front and work our way to the back. That way we know we're being thorough. Once that's done, we'll polish all these nice matte finish parts, including the fork legs and the frame, and she should look showroom ready. So I am super glad I decided to check all the bolts. This pivot was so loose, you would have been able to remove it with your fingers. So I've got my trusty Park Tool torque bar, and I'm gonna put about 10 to 12 Newton meters on this one, and we should be good to go. Okay, so for the last and final step, we'll use the MAXIMA SC1 high gloss coating on all of the bike to get us showroom ready. So I'm gonna knock that out now, and then we'll do some final shots like I always tend to do, and that'll be a wrap. Now it's time for my favorite part of any completion, the victory lap around the neighborhood. All right, YouTube, you know what to do. Thanks so much for watching today. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel with notifications on, because there are giveaways that I'm gonna be doing. There's one today, actually. Somebody's gonna win some gloves and a new set of grips. Aside from that, make sure that you comment any questions or comments that you have about the content that I just put up for you. And then lastly, if you feel inclined, my Patreon is active, and I'm still waiting for that first Patreon subscriber. I will give that first Patreon patron a special gift. So please consider that so we can get the ball rolling, because I do need your support moving forward. And yeah, that's a wrap. Thanks again. I will see y'all next time.